everybody. I'm Tommy Sims, one of the co-directors of Lovely Socialites Top Secret Jazz.
And I'm Joe Ludwig, co-director and star of Top Secret Jazz, amongst other roles.
True. I'm also an actor in there as well. I play 3 different characters in this one, mostly Popeye Parker.
What's your film about?
A Rough Rider rides into town and he tussles with the townsfolk who don't agree with him, and there's a little twist halfway through, and he's transported to a lounge where he learns the secrets of a trade that he never imagined were possible.
What struck me about your film is that when I've seen your stuff before many times, it wasn't what I was expecting it to be. It's like you mentioned, it's a Western, but it has a jazz theme to it, which you don't associate with Westerns.
Right.
And it goes into the paranormal aspect. It's a mishmash of different genres and tones and textures.
We definitely wanted to put our own spin on it. I know we've been talking about doing a Western for a while now, so we just went ahead and did a full-blown Western, and Joe actually had a bit of a backstory idea to kick this off.
Yeah, well, it all started based on the location, because I followed someone who models on Instagram in the Milwaukee area, and she posted images of this Western ranch, and I messaged her, where is this? Because we've kind of casually floated the idea about doing a Western. And I was like, where is this? Is this in Wisconsin? And she said, yeah, it's in Eagle, Wisconsin.
How far is it from Milwaukee?
I think it's an hour drive.
Yeah.
Hour 15 maybe.
It's right next door to Old World, Wisconsin.
I'd say this was like 4 years ago that I found out about it, but then 2 years ago is when we came up with the story, and it's kind of like a backwards way of going about it. I said, okay, we have a location. Now, what story can we fit into this location? And I don't know if you've seen our other music. Our first Lovely Socialite collaboration was in black and white, a twist on a Twilight Zone episode. And Tommy was a milkman, and ever since he's been a milkman in almost every one of our productions. But I thought, well, hey, Tommy gets to be this reoccurring character. I should have my own reoccurring character. And I thought, well, I could probably be a cowboy.
Based on the characters and whatnot from previous films, if you go back to Fuzzy Surf's Killing Time that we did a while back, towards the end of that video, Joe walks in as a host of a Afterlife After Hours paranormal variety show. So we're like, this could be part of his character. What would this character's backstory be? How does he, not necessarily how does he die, but how does he become this ghostly figure?
The band, I've never heard of them until I seen this music video. Who's in the band?
One of the members, Corey, is in Fuzzy Surf. In Fuzzy Surf, he plays keyboard. In Lovely Socialite, he plays trombone. And then there is Abe, Ben, Brian. There's also Pat and Mike. They're the guys scattered across the Midwest. Well, I guess they play here and there, but
Yeah.
they're not like in your typical rock band or anything. They call it jazz rock fusion.
Usually you have a song and then you think of the concept. Now you have the concept before the song, and it's almost not necessarily secondary, but it's also, you have to fit what you have with that.
So I think it was shortly before we got to the jazz lounge that we knew that Joe was going to be, because everybody in the lounge is actually a ghost, and once Joe gets there, he's going to learn how to become a ghost. So we were thinking, what could they do, and like, what could we do to show that these people are ghosts, and outside of making them transparent and whatnot.
It was very Tim Burton-ish.
Yeah. So like in the back of my mind, I'm sure I had like Beetlejuice and everything running there. And I was like, okay, so when Joe runs into Frankie sitting at the bar, Frankie's gonna just scare Joe and just like make a face. I'm like, let's just have her rip her skin off and like she'll just like look something like this. And we decided to fully go for it. And we just have
you composited the live action with animation because you kind of put his face, you kind of put the animation over the person's face.
yeah. So on set, people are just going like this, just like making goofy faces. And I animated all of that with the claymation again. So if I can show you our setup over here. So I have the multi-plane camera set up. If Jill, if you want to pull back a little bit here. So that's we got the stand here, and I can have different levels with plexiglass, and I can animate the pieces straight down against either a blue screen, green screen, red screen, whatever color we need that'll make the clay pop. And the camera's just set up here on a tripod straight down.
Are those the actual faces from it?
These are. So for some of the shots, so like the skulls were baked when I animated them, and the eyebrows were still raw clay. The eyeballs were also raw clay, but just to make sure that the skulls didn't get deformed, I kept it baked. But for like Joe making faces, I went through and resculpted everyone just to make sure that it looked as crisp as I had hoped that it would. And here we have the in-between face between the clay Joe and his actual face. So if you pause it at the right moment, you'll see that for like a split second. And then like with him pulling his face off, I had animated frame by frame and resculpted that as well. This skull over here is for Frankie when she rips her face off. And right next to the skull is the last I guess sculpture that I made to put on top of her skull as her face was coming back together. So it looks a little crude now with like the sharp edges of the clay, but we fixed that all up in post, and I just needed to have clay wrap coming around her skull, wrapping around to get her face back together. And up here we got
how long do the final materials there, the pieces, how long did they normally last?
Once they're baked, they last forever. So I used Sculpey 3 clay, which is a polymer clay, which you can bake it and it turns hard. Otherwise, you can keep it raw and it'll stay pretty squishy for years. And it's all individually colored clay too, but some of it I put powder on top of to add additional colors. And then we also cleaned up all the colors in post too to make sure that they matched everything. But the key for animating on the green screen multi-plane setup here is to make sure that the lighting matches the lighting that we have in the scene itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I have multiple lights set up around here that we adjusted per shot just to make sure everything was good to go.
Now you've mentioned red screen. Now,
yeah.
Most people are probably fully aware of a blue screen and green screen, but can you talk a little bit about the importance of a red screen in case?
Yeah, so if you actually look here, I have just numerous sheets that are different colors, and I can change it up as needed. So the red screen I actually used for the blue doorway, just to make sure when you insert the footage of the claymation on top of other footage, you need to key out the background. And by keying out the background, you basically select the color back here and it'll get rid of it, make it transparent so you can see what's
and sometimes there might be a little green into blue and
right. So if you look closely, you can see that I do actually have some green detail in there. So to make sure that we don't lose any of that, I decided to shoot that against a red background, which made it pop the best. And you can see there's a clear line that'll be taken out, and we don't have any issues when the footage is all composited together.
Great. I think people will be fascinated by this demonstration there. That's nice. Thank you. How long does it take to animate that stuff? Because you're going frame by frame and it's 20
Yeah,
frames a second.
yeah, and it depends on how long the shot is. It depends upon what I need to do. If I'm just moving something around, it goes a lot faster, but having to resculpt it, I'd say every shot, which is probably 3 to 5 seconds, with maybe 2 days worth of work or so. So maybe about 10 hours per
Okay.
individual shot, give or take.
I forgot to ask who's the fellow in the background and so on. Because people might be curious about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that is me and my corpse. So there were a couple trick shots where I died and I had to be in two spots at the same time. So while I was how spoilery are we getting here?
I think we've talked.
Yeah,
Yeah. Don't watch this interview until you've seen the film, folks.
Yeah. We don't want to spoil it for anyone. As someone who has made a Western himself, I find it's something that most filmmakers want to do. They always want to make a Western at some point. Now that you've made one, how do you guys feel about that? Another thing cross off the bucket list, or you want to make another one or anything like that?
Oh, this is actually my second one. My college project, The Legend of Leatherface Larry, was a full-on cowboy claymation. And that was actually shown at the Cannes Film Festival a couple of years back. So there's sort of some loose connections to that film in this one too. So I love working in the genre.
And I think this just kind of whetted my appetite because, you know, at the end of the day, it's still a Wisconsin set Western. And I know there are different terrains in the Old West, especially if you go more north. But we were talking like eventually we got to go down to the Southwest and just film just a flat out Western like you guys did.
Mm-hmm.
Get some real cacti.
No, I didn't go Southwest. I just went to South Dakota.
Oh,
really?
Oh, the Badlands.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's like, you know, set like the ghost town or whatever they call that set that is pretty much just used for film shoots.
Yeah.
And like the one in where we filmed at Kettle Moraine Ranch, it's really only one half of a street. So the porch is only like one.
Oh, so like the road is like right there if you turn the camera around?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm curious to see what people would think if they watch this film and then go to the ranch and see how it's actually set up. Like what kind of surroundings do they think there actually is?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for doing this today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And
thank you.
Thank you for showing us the behind the scenes of the animation.
Oh, of course, anytime.
You bet. Thanks for accepting the film.
No, we liked it. Thank you.